Good evening, everybody. I am ProLib. Welcome to the show. Kitty is with me. Good evening, Kitty.
Hello.
And Steven is here, our guest tonight. Good evening, Steven.
Good morning.
We have a really big show for you tonight. Very important topic. But before we get to it, I've got a couple of kind of channel notes, information for you. It's been a very big week. It's kind of funny. I was thinking today, you haven't seen me in Kitty since last Tuesday. And yet it feels like the entire planet has changed since last Tuesday. Last Tuesday, I still had Twitter. Can you believe it? I think all three of us still had Twitter a week ago today. Anyway, it's gone. So you can't follow me on Twitter anymore. All those old videos that had my Twitter in it, none of it, you won't find me. So below what I put was our Blue Skies. All three of us are on Blue Sky. Go ahead and follow us. It's much better than Twitter in basically every way possible. And we love it. So right now, that is my handle. Very soon, it'll just be prolibshow.com, but there's some stuff I got to go in the back end to make that happen. So sometime in the next couple of days, it'll be at prolibshow.com. If you're watching this in the future, it's probably already at prolibshow.com. Just letting you know. Okay, next thing. The Substack era has begun. I have a Substack. I was finally talked into it, and now that I have it, I wish I'd done it years ago. The Substack, it works like this. There's a post that explains this more deeper that's on my Substack, prolibshow.substack.com. Basically, everything that I post on there is going to be free for the first 2 weeks. If you're interested in everything that I've ever posted, the archive, you'll have to pay. You'll have to be a paid subscriber, which is $8 a month. So it's not, it's not anything big. But if you are a big fan enough of me, I guess, then you can choose to do that. Once we have channel memberships here on YouTube, the price will be the exact same. So you can be a member on Substack, you can be a member on YouTube, and you'll have access to the exact same content. Nothing will be gatekeeped for YouTube. Nothing will be gatekeeped for Substack. It's just up to you. Whatever's easier for you to join, if you want to join. And if you don't want to join, there's always going to be plenty of free content. You don't have to join and pay for anything. I'll never do that to you. There will be a less expensive tier on YouTube if you just want to support the channel, but you don't care about all of that stuff, but you just want to pay like $2 a month just to support the channel. That will be available on YouTube as well. So just to let you know. Starting sometime this week, I'm not sure exactly when yet, the show will also be available as an audio podcast on Substack and Apple, Google, all that stuff. You are currently watching, can you believe, Season 3, Episode 3 of the ProLib Show. Isn't that kind of cool? Season 3, Episode 3, that's what this is. The audio podcast will be edited down a little bit, so it won't be the entire show. It'll be a little bit more collated. But I know some people like to listen to us instead of watch us. So now it'll just be there. You'll just have it, and it'll be free. You don't have to pay for it. So you can just listen to it anytime you want. ProLibShow.com is coming probably by the end of the week. Basically, it'll be like a link tree for me. But what I like about it is that on Blue Sky, I can basically verify myself by changing my handle to my domain name. So you know it's really me when you follow me on Blue Sky. That's the main reason I'm doing it. But there won't be anything that's on there that's gatekeeped or paid or anything like that. The website will be free and everything will be linked on it. The Discord is open again. Feel free to jump in. The link is on the Substack. The mod can link it in the chat, of course. The live call-in thing with the software we're using, unfortunately, is not going to work. So there are some options that I'm looking at, but the software we were using created too many issues while we were going live. Like Kitty couldn't use green screens and her camera didn't like it. It was just too many technical issues with it. So we're not going to use that software, but we're going to figure something else out. Finally, if you're watching live, tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, I will be on with Machine Gun Kelly. I'll be on Machine Gun Kelly's channel, and we're gonna, I don't know, bitch about stuff or something. I don't know. But I'm very excited to be on with Machine Gun Kelly. He's a great guy, very funny, and follow him. He's on Blue Sky as well. That's it for me. Kitty, do you have any updates for the peoples?
Honestly, no, other than, thanks for getting me close to where I was on my Twitter before I nuked it.
For sure.
I'm over 1,000, like, hooray, over 1,000
It's awesome.
followers on Blue Sky, which is awesome. I did a post earlier today that is just really popping off, which is really cool. And,
It
like,
is.
I was being a little snarky, a little tongue-in-cheek,
You were.
Um,
It's good stuff.
but it was also something that made me like fundamentally sad, like on a core level.
Yeah.
You know, uh, so yeah, there's that. Other than this, like I really have just been kind of taking it easy, like trying to focus on the mental health aspect of the post November 6th.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve is all of us right now. Yes. Deflated and
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Just yeah.
Well, again, we just want to thank you all for being who you are, being part of our community. We appreciate all of you.
Much
Uh,
love.
okay, I am done with all of my boring crap. Steve, I want to get to you. Your story really touched me the first time I heard it, and I know it touched Kitty as well. And we wanted you on as a guest immediately. I'm just gonna ask you right out. Tell me about living with cancer.
Yeah, so it's now been almost this May will be 9 years. I was 26 years old when I decided to get in control of my sexual health as a gay man and get on PrEP medication, which was a really big step for me because I never really trusted medical establishment or doctors or vaccines. I used to be very different than I am now. And then this billboard in Los Angeles put on by the LA LGBT Center said, "Fuck without fear." And that really just hit me to the core at the bones. I was like, that's provocative. It's interesting. I was like, all right, let me just go check this out. As a queer man who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, HIV and AIDS was very scary. Go in. Part of the process of getting on PrEP medication was you have to do a simple blood test just to see what your baseline is. And they said, no news is good news, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for your first prescription. 3 days later, I got a barrage of phone calls, and I was in my pattern making class. I was training to become a tailor, and I stepped out for a quick moment out of my classroom, and a frantic nurse was on the other line saying, Mr. Martin, we need you to come in immediately. There's something very serious. Immediately, my heart sunk into my stomach, and I was afraid that they were about to tell me some really terrible news around a diagnosis, and I thought they were going to say I was HIV positive, and then I'm like screaming, crying on the floor at my college university in the middle of the quad, and they're like, no, it's not that. And it's like, well, what is it then? And they're like, your white blood cells are very elevated. And I was like, can you put some numbers to that? My sister's a nurse, so I kind of understand a few things.
Right.
And she goes, well, baseline white blood cell count is between 4 and 10,000. 10 being on the really high side. Okay, well, what is mine? 143,000.
Oh my God.
Which my sister, who is a nurse, has had patients with sepsis who don't even get anywhere close to that. And I knew what that meant immediately. I said,
of course.
Are you telling me I have cancer? And
Right.
she's like, that is the most logical conclusion we can think of right now, but we need to get you into the office immediately. I spend the next 2 weeks in the hospital at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. And they do a bone marrow biopsy on me, and that's how they determined I had chronic myeloid leukemia. And the doctor, Dr. Lil, may he rest in peace, said this is actually a very treatable cancer. It used to be deadly, but there was a huge medical breakthrough in the late 90s. We can get you this medicine. You'll just take this medicine every single day, and you're going to be fine. But you have to take this medication for the rest of your life. However, the medication is really expensive. And so at the time, on the first generation of drugs I was on, it was about 130,000. I had a relapse of non-response to the medication about 2 years ago. And I'm on the second generation drug, which is about $245,000 a year. And so I've been living with this disease now for almost 9 years. These drugs are incredibly strong. They have tons of side effects that I deal with on a daily basis, from hot flashes to nausea, vomiting, pain in my hands and feet. That's called neuropathy. It's incredibly painful. Sometimes it's difficult to walk. Sometimes I get bone pain. I get a lot of muscle spasms. So my life is completely different than the young queer man training to become a tailor who can no longer work with his hands and barely walk on his feet in a regular amount anymore. It's been 9 years of this. And 6 months later, after that diagnosis, is when Donald Trump became president.
Yeah. Well, that's a good place to pause for some questions. One thing I said backstage before we started, and I want to say now, is both of you deal with chronic illness, chronic issues. I am extremely lucky that I do not. And, I really feel like a lot of this conversation needs to be between you two, because you two both have an understanding of this that I just simply don't, because I don't live with it. Like I said, sometimes I sleep wrong and my shoulder hurts. Like that's the worries of like my chronic issues.
Being a white straight male can be considered an issue as well.
Well, that's true. That is true. That's very, very true.
This is very true. Especially now.
Yeah, some of the stuff I deal with at work, working in the finance sector, I can. Whew. Anyway,
if only our issues were just, hey, I'm, pushing 40 or over 40 and I slept wrong. Like, would be like, that'd be like heaven.
Yeah. But the reason I bring that up is Kitty, I know that you're not dealing with a disease that's terminal, or probably terminal. But it's similar in some ways because it's nerve damage. So I just wanted to kind of give you some space to talk about it.
This is 1 month's worth of gabapentin for me. I have to take 4 800 milligrams a day to somewhat function. Then I've got this is nausea medication, Zofran. They give it to cancer patients and pregnant women or people who are pregnant. And I first found out about this stuff when I was pregnant and could not keep down even water without being on this round the clock. That was fun. And then there's the medications, like it's a combination of the gabapentin and then the pain medications that allow me to function. If I lose healthcare, it is, I mean, let's be real. It's a game over situation for me, because there are days I can barely function even with the medications. Right. When it feels like your limb has had the blood inside of it turned into napalm and set on fire, and it burns every minute of every day. And I was diagnosed at 19. and I'm 38 now. So I have been living with this for almost 20 years. And there is a macabre nickname for my particular condition. I'll use the term unaliving.
Right.
We're not on TikTok, but the unaliving disease, because so many people decide that they just want to Alt F4
Sure.
with it. Like I've been stable. I have been on the exact same meds at the same dosage for 10 years, which, considering I am also on opiates to control my pain, that, like, I haven't had to go up with those at all. Like, everything is dialed in perfectly. Do I still have, a lot of bad days? Yeah, but I am at least stable enough that I am a somewhat normal human person. If I'm walking around my house, I'm fine. If I go to the grocery store or something, I'm using a mobility aid like a cane because I need that extra support, stability. There are days I can't get out of bed, like, it is what it is. You take the good with the bad, you hope for more good, and you just chug along. But I know I don't have it in me to do this without the medication. I just don't. Like, it's dark, it's sad, it's depressing, but it's the truth. Like, I need the medication to be able to function.
Could you give the name of it again?
Yeah, when I was first diagnosed, they called it causalgia reflex sympathetic dystrophy. Now they call it complex regional pain syndrome.
Okay.
And it comes in at a 42 on the McGill pain scale. And they say it's the most painful chronic thing a person can have. So that's fun. And finding that out at 19, like,
Right.
no one is equipped to hear that kind of news,
Oh, yeah.
especially not a 19-year-old. So, it took an adjustment period, and I've been through a lot of different medications. At one point, the doctors just kept pumping me full of as many opiates as possible. Like, I was on fentanyl at one point. Like, I got
Oh my
off of
God.
that cold turkey. It took me a year and a half to start feeling normal again. I felt like I was not going to survive just the withdrawal.
Sure.
So, like, again, I'm in a great place now. Like, my medication is got me managed to where I'm fine. Again, I have good days, I have bad,
Sure.
but that's how it is when you're living with anything chronic. You're not always going to have good days, you're not always going to have bad days. Mostly it just kind of evens out.
Well, and first of all, what both of you are going through is completely heartbreaking to me. I don't even. I have trouble expressing my feelings except to say that I just, it breaks my heart.
It's because you're a
Um,
very empathetic person. It's why
well,
I like you.
I like you too.
Aw.
So what I want to do is start our steps forward, right? Worried about our healthcare position in America because Steve, I know that you've done a lot of activism
Yeah.
around healthcare,
Yeah.
and so before we get to what's probably coming for us in the future, which we are going to talk about, can we talk about what? Okay, so Donald Trump gets elected. What did you do next?
The first time or this time?
The first time.
The first time. Okay, so I went to my first public protest. I've never been in activism, around activism at all, but I was so overcome with my diagnosis. I spent 6 months at home, blinds closed, watching my childhood favorite TV shows just to feel better. Shout out Charmed.
Sure.
Um, and then he got elected, and I was in a state of panic and disbelief because this is when the catchphrase "repeal and replace"
Right.
was the battle cry of the right. Let's be very clear: my medication is only able to be paid for because of the protections in the Affordable Care Act, specifically under the Medicaid expansion. I went to a protest at USC Medical Center where Kamala Harris was going to be speaking. And I got a big green sign and I wrote on it, let's see if I have it right here. I wrote on it, I was 26 years old when I was diagnosed with leukemia. The ACA saved my life. There were about 4,500 people at this rally. When I showed up, I was all the way in the back. Some of the organizers noticed my sign. They put me right up at the top. They called out my sign. They read it. I ended up being pulled aside, meeting Kamala Harris. My mom and me got to talk to Kamala Harris for about 10 minutes. Really nice. And I had just finished watching a few months prior this series called When We Rise, which is about Cleve Jones and Roma Guy and a few other activists out of San Francisco during the AIDS pandemic or epidemic. And I was really inspired by that. And because I could no longer work, I decided, well, then I'm going to dedicate my life to trying to save the Affordable Care Act. And so I spent the next 4.5 years protecting the Affordable Care Act. I joined this coalition of grassroots organizers that just popped up out of nowhere. We ended up leading phone banks in Los Angeles here that were averaging about 500 to 750 callers per activation, which if you know anything about putting together a phone bank, a big phone bank is about 50 to 100 people.
Yeah.
This was unheard of. We took over entire college campuses for the straight capacity. I was telling my story as a storyteller and an accidental activist who was pulled into situations. I ended up doing some bird dogging of Republicans who were going to be voting on the repeal. I went to Capitol Hill with activists like Audie Barkin and Jennifer Flynn Walker, and I helped lead a sit-in in front of Mimi Walters' congressional office, where I was taken away in handcuffs and slept on a church floor in the middle of December 2018. And then when we saved it, the skinny repeal came, and then I became a spokesperson storyteller for then Attorney General Javier Becerra for the state of California, using my story to help promote the counter lawsuit, California v. Texas. At the time, Texas was suing the United States government to overturn the Affordable Care Act's constitutionality. And we did that. We were able to maintain. We got a bit of a reprieve during the Biden administration. Helped fight for Medicare price negotiations, which we won for the first time in 50 years. I did this specifically because my medication costs $245,000 a year, and that's, in my mind, criminal.
Say that again for me. How much does it cost?
About $245,000 a year for the rest of my life. Understanding that economic burden is...
And here I was feeling bad that, without insurance, my medications are like $1,500 a month, like it's still insane, but 1,500 times 12 is not.
Is the medication. It's called Tasigna. For credibility sakes, sure. And at the dosage I take it at and how many times a day I take it at, it is very expensive.
I would have to look into it, but I'd be willing to bet money that public funding funded the research for that medication.
I'm sure it did.
It is such a pet peeve for me.
I got to talk to somebody from Cedars-Sinai who had, I think, worked on some of the research. He said this pill was the breakthrough moment for this entire classification of medicine, immunotherapies, and it was 50 years worth of science publicly funded that broke this into mainstream medicines. And the same types of tools and how we think about preventing these diseases from spreading rather than eradicating disease like traditional chemotherapy. This is a huge thing. And before it was invented, my diagnosis would have been a death sentence. You get about, once you get it, you probably have about 1.5 years, 2 years. But with this medication, you just take these pills and you could have, as my doctor said, 15, 20 years, which
Hey,
is
every
also a
moment.
clock that's in my head.
But you know, you're also using that time in a way that's beautiful to me.
Yeah.
One thing I am familiar with is the ACA. I've talked about this on the channel before, but I guess I'll talk about it again. I was the senior systems administrator of the ACA call center for South Carolina. We had a fun time. You know, there were days. This was when Obama was president, by the way. It was just that it was South Carolina. And there were days when we would have staff meetings and they'd be like, listen, just keep in mind our funding could get cut next week. I can't tell you how many times we were told that. Like, the Republicans in our state legislature don't like this. They don't like that we're operating, that we're having success, and that people are calling in and getting, they don't like it. And you just have to keep in mind that this could all go away. And so we always had that hanging over our heads. Eventually, hey, guess what happened? All that money started to be given to. So I worked for a nonprofit that ran the call center. The money was taken away from the nonprofit and given to a private sector corporation that now runs the call center. And hey, guess what? All of our metrics had to be public. All of our metrics, our after call work had to be public. My salary was public. You could have gone on the website and found out exactly how much I made. It doesn't have to be anymore. Huh? Weird how that works. But that's how I learned about a lot of this stuff, like pre-existing conditions. I didn't know what a I didn't know what that was. I was a moron. Not much has changed, but I now know what a pre-existing condition is. But one of the things that I learned was how many people who are just like everyday people that just are like our people that you know, that you work with and like go to church with and stuff. I know not a lot of people in my audience go to church. It's a saying, okay? Deal with chronic medical and health issues that can get help because the ACA exists, that won't get thrown off their health insurance because they have pre-existing conditions.
Not just pre-existing conditions, but lifetime caps. Like my son spent the first month of his life in the NICU. That would have been a lifetime cap on insurance, and he would have had, they would consider it a pre-existing condition. There was a woman that she had acne as a teenager, got skin cancer as an adult, and they're like, "Oh, you say it was acne? We say it was precancerous lesions, so we're not paying for your cancer treatment."
Yeah. There's a lot of those stories out there, and
That's called rescission for
Right.
all the Gen Z out there who
Yep.
have never lived through this before. Rescission is when you get diagnosed with something and your insurance finds a way to kick you off.
I mean, hell, even after the ACA, when I had my son, the insurance company still found a loophole to not cover his time in the NICU because I had him at a hospital. They didn't have, he was a planned C-section because my body could not handle labor and delivery. And he needed to be transferred to a NICU. They didn't have the facilities at that hospital to keep him alive, so he had to be taken by ambulance to the children's hospital an hour away. Right. And the insurance company's like, "Oh, that's a separate stay. It's not covered under your maternity care." If he had been admitted to the NICU in the same hospital, they would have paid. But because he had to be taken to another hospital to stay alive,
right,
they're like, "Nope, not paying." And that was after the ACA went into effect.
Yes. One of the licenses I hold is a health insurance license. I don't do any health insurance. I did a little bit of health insurance business for like a year, and I was like, screw this, because I was constantly getting phone calls from my clients that were getting denied for little tiny crap like that, and I could not emotionally be a health insurance agent anymore. I couldn't take it. I have to be careful here because I can't say a lot because this is a client. A client she needed temporary coverage between jobs. She was going to be between jobs for about 6 weeks. At one job contract ended, her next contract didn't start for another 6 months. So we had to get her temporary coverage. Well, guess who else was on her health insurance? Her minor child, who regularly saw a mental health professional. And the temporary insurance said, no, we're not covering her because of a loophole that's similar. Again, I don't want to get, it was, you couldn't get care from two different providers. That's all. I don't want to go any deeper into it than that.
Yeah,
And
any type of fuckery they can
but
to not have to pay.
I had to call her and inform her that her daughter was not going to be able to see a mental health professional for 6 weeks. And this person needed regular mental health coverage. And there was literally nothing I could do. Didn't even qualify for telehealth. I don't sell health insurance anymore because I can't.
Understandable.
Lot of
and this is why we need to get the rapacious for-profit middlemen, out of it. Like, there should not be a profit motive when it comes to people's lives. Full fucking stop.
Holy Spackle says pro-life country, folks.
Oh yeah, totally pro-life. Carlin said it best. If you're pre-born, you're okay. If you're preschool, you're fucked.
Yeah. So speaking of fucked.
Back to me.
Raise your hands if you're on Medicare or Medicaid. Oh, I don't have to raise my hand. Oh, Steven, which one are you on?
I'm on both.
You're on both Medicare and Medicaid? I can't believe that. It seems like I knew that already.
So this is a term. There's a term for people like me. It's called Medi-Medi. And because I have been declared disabled by a judge, I qualify for Medicare before the age of 64, thanks to things like the ADA and the Social Security reform. And I get my monthly stipend at the beginning of every month, and it pays for my Medicare. But because I make so little, I also qualify for Medicaid. So I'm actually covered by both. In the state of California, Medicaid is actually called Medi-Cal.
Right.
And Medi-Cal in California pays 100% of the difference.
Yes. So where I am, and in many places in the Southeast, it's called being dual covered. Because guess what we don't have is something as amazing as Medi-Cal. Yeah. And how much of that, so how much of your medical costs on average are covered by this program?
All of my medical costs are covered. All of them. 100%. Medi-Cal in the state of California, California thought to do it really smart at the very beginning when it was implemented. So instead of having it as federally covered Medicaid, what they said is, please just give us the money and we'll manage the entire package here in California. And we'll add in our own state taxes to prepay a lot of the healthcare up front. And they got in early. So in the state of California, 100% of my costs are covered.
That's amazing.
That is not true for every single state.
Right.
Like, you can be in the state of North Carolina and be on Medicaid and have work requirements.
Yes.
Where in Texas, they never took the Medicaid expansion because Medicaid expansion has to be passed state by state thanks to the Supreme Court. And there is no Medicaid expansion, so you don't really qualify for anything in the state of Texas. It's very common for people to get a disease like mine and move to the state of California because you will have all of your coverage.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and it breaks my heart. Here's what you need to keep in mind about this, guys. The money is there. It's available for them to take. They literally choose not to. These state legislatures just say, nah, we're not taking it.
And it's usually the state legislatures where they have the highest populations of people of color that they do not pass Medicaid in. That is something to be very clear about.
Yes. Yes, 100%. Guess what? South Carolina has a very high population of people of color. Guess what they don't have? Medicaid expansion. I remember I went to college in South Carolina. And I think it was the first day of History 101. The professor asked, were the majority of people who lived in South Carolina in 1864 in favor of slavery? And like half the class raised their hands. He's like, no, because the majority population in 1864 was people of color who were the slaves. So you're all wrong. Yeah. So it's... very, very sad. And I don't see it changing anytime soon because, hey guys, did you see who got nominated today to head up the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the CMS?
Yes, and it's literally giving me indigestion. I actually learned about it right before I got on this call
Me too. Me too.
because
Because
I'm not watching the news and I'm staying off of Twitter.
Right.
And
I haven't heard yet.
Oh, you
but
haven't heard.
oh,
No.
did I break the news?
Let's play a game.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
How pained is Kitty gonna look when they hear this
How pained
information?
is Kitty gonna feel when they hear this? Kitty, I want you to list out the worst doctors you can think of that are real. Obviously, it's not Doctor Doom
Or Dr. Evil.
or
Oh
Dr.
no!
Evil.
What? Please don't tell me it was one of those like doctors during COVID with like the demon sperm like.
You're close.
You know.
You're so close.
You're very close.
Oh no! No, I don't think I want to know. Can I just like
Let me give you a
not?
hint. This doctor loves to sell vitamins.
Oh, here's another hint. I have a hint for you. We represent the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild, the Lollipop Guild.
No. No. Why? Why would they? Why would no? I know why. Because Oz is a freaking billionaire or millionaire. Well, I don't. He's stupid rich.
I don't know that he's a billionaire.
Yeah, he's a multimillionaire, carpet bagging, snake oil salesman. That
Who looks like Lord Licorice.
Yes, he really does.
He really does.
That's a really good comparison. You know, we laugh.
So not pain, anger. Like I'm not feeling pain. I'm feeling anger. Whew.
We laugh because
you have to keep from crying.
What else do you do? It's not funny. It's the opposite of funny.
It's not.
Well, see, and here's the thing about the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, right?
Yes.
They, for those who don't know, they manage and respond to the needs of the entire system of paying out the money for seniors and disabled people at Medicare and Medicaid for the people who are so poor and underinsured that the government must step in to facilitate the needs of healthcare. And they're going to put this, as the comedian put it, Oprah's Horcrux on installed at the head of this agency, who is so incompetent. His own incompetence will achieve what Republicans have been trying to do forever, which is destroy it from the inside.
Yes.
And, get the disabled people that are drains on the system. It's like when they wanted to reopen after COVID, like the chronically ill people, it was like, yeah, we're just going to sacrifice them on the altar of capitalism. If you're elderly, disabled, chronically ill, like you are the sacrifice for capitalism. Like it said that we don't matter.
Extra emphasis on that they want disabled people to fall off of disability.
Yes.
There are more off ramps from the road of disability than there are on ramps.
Yes.
And it is very, very difficult to get it back once you lose it. It takes about 2.5 years to get your disability approved. I applied in 2018. I think January of 2018 is when I applied. I finally got approved January of 2020. And then the pandemic hit.
My aunt had been Baker acted twice. Once when she showed up randomly at my grandparents' house and was threatening to murder both of them. My grandmother was ill with cancer at the time. We Baker acted her after that. The second time, I forget where she was just like at a bar and like walked up to a police officer and just started attacking him. Just violently attacked him. We had to Baker act her after both. She was on, all kinds of different drugs since she was like 16. I mean, psychoactive drugs, like not like heroin or something, but like, stuff to normalize her brain. Even after that, even after the second time we Baker acted her, it was 3 more years before we could get her on disability. We first had to get a judge that said that she needed to be on it, and that's when the process started. And it was 3 years from that while she was in the institution the second time.
I mean, I almost got thrown off one time. I had to hire an attorney to make sure to intervene on my behalf. The fear you have when your Medicare and Medicaid are turned off,
Yeah,
because you're in a race against a cell mutation to get that medication back into your system. The best way I can describe it is something like this. I'm sure everybody in their early 20s had that one apartment at the most irresponsible time of their life, and you probably spent a little too much of your rent money on alcohol and food and going out. And your landlord is asking where the rent is every single day, maybe every 6 hours. And you are fretting to find an extra job, an extra little pickup. Can my mom loan me money? Well, she can, but I have to wait till her paycheck comes. Like all of these things, and your mind's going 10,000 miles an hour trying to figure out how to get an extra couple $100. Not having your Medicare or your Medicaid feels very similar to that existential dread that is eating you up inside when you know you could possibly lose your home. But it's worse because I can't go out and just do an odd job and make enough money to pay the copay on something that's about $25,000 a month. That's not possible.
Right.
And I'm not rich by any means.
Sure.
I come from lower middle class family. I've lived in an apartment my entire life.
Not to mention the fact that, if you are on disability, they expect you to be indigent. Like, that is why disabled people tend to not get married, because if you have over a certain amount, like, buy benefits, like,
Yep.
they will cut your checks, and you will
Absolutely.
not get them until your bank account drops below a certain amount.
Absolutely.
So they want
You can't
you to
inherit
be in
things.
abject poverty.
Yeah, you can't inherit money. You're not allowed. I found out that I wasn't allowed to get a stimulus check. I filled out the paperwork to get my stimulus check. I got it. They fined my monthly payments by $700 a month until it was paid off. So there's a lot of problems that already existed with the Social Security Disability Act.
Right.
And for the last 8.5 years, I have been working to get the government to a place where we can finally address it. But the voters on November 5th decided against people who live with disabilities or chronic illnesses. And now we are very much staring down the barrel of somebody who wants to make Medicare and Medicaid cuts to Social Security. And I am bracing for impact. That is a real thing I'm going to have to navigate. And I don't know how I get through these next 4 years when these things happen.
And the thing that boggles the mind is a lot of them are beneficiaries of Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, like the Affordable Care Act. They're like, yeah, no, go ahead and cut Obamacare because Obamacare bad, but don't touch the Affordable Care Act. It's like, my sweet summer child, they are the same fucking thing. Like, and this was like,
it was tropes around trans people needing to shit in bathrooms that got America to surrender their future and their wallets in order to protect themselves from a lie. And now a lot of people with disabilities are going to have to pay the ultimate price because of that. And if you look at Project 2025, they outline what they're going to do for veterans' disabilities. I can only imagine it's going to be the same. They're going to kick veterans off of their disability status because they're going to rank how bad they think your disability status is as a veteran. It's already hard to get your veteran's disability status if you've been injured during the time of service. I feel that they will do the same thing with the Disabilities Act. And I don't know. It was already hard with my disease to get disability because the rigidity and the non-update compliance of what counts as a problem during your disease, like they don't take in there is a rubric that they have that does not have anything about the side effects from your chemo medications can be used to consider if you are disabled or not. I had to go to a double appeal in front of a judge in order to plead my case, in order for him to ultimately push it through. I don't know if we're going to have that same capabilities anymore, because I have a chronic disease that I'll have for the rest of my life. I have to prove I still have it like every year or two. It's not just like it's not a stasis.
Right. You know, and it's this situation where you brought up a really good point about trans people. And I think you made this point in Spaces recently too. So I want to bring this up. Trans people are 0.5% of the fucking population. 0.5% of the population, the adult population, are trans.
It's less than 1 million people.
Less than 1 million people. And
of those people, 80% never use medical intervention,
right,
for their transition.
Right. A lot of them they're like, yeah, I'm just trans now, and I'm not going to do any, medical gender affirming, which is fine. They don't want to. It's their life. It doesn't bother me. But what does Nancy Mace do today when Sarah McBride gets into Congress? Oh, we need to pass a bill that you have to use the bathroom assigned to your whatever. Like,
Republicans want to make being trans about rape, but when it's really like the issues that affect trans people the most, which I guess is now bathrooms, is really more about bowel movements than it is
Right.
about sexual assault.
Like, listen, and I'm a straight dude, and I'm so sorry if this comes off as offensive. I didn't say this on Blue Sky today because in text I think it could be taken the wrong way. But I know that there are women who always feel that there are spaces that they want to prevent men from entering because it makes them uncomfortable to have men in those spaces. Totally understand. I get it. Totally understand. Trans women are women.
Yeah.
What you're worried about is predator men. You're
That
worried
don't
about men who
care.
are predators.
This has
Thankfully,
never
somebody else
been
said
a
it,
problem
and I got to shut
before. Trans women have been using the bathroom peacefully for decades. This is not.
That's my point. Like,
Am
why
I going to
would
get
they...
cited for taking my kid into the restroom? Because my child, like, I have a son,
Right.
like, and he's autistic. When he needs to go to the bathroom, I take him in with me.
Of course.
Because I'm not going to I don't fucking trust people.
Sure.
Like, but that's more just because I know the statistics for like neurodivergent and, disabled kids and how they're higher likelihood of bad things. So, like, no, I keep my eye on him,
and that's my
but
point.
like, am I going to get cited for taking him into the bathroom with me? Like, the fuck?
I don't know, but thankfully somebody else said what I wanted to say better than what I was trying to say, and I just reshared what they said. Go on my timeline, I'm sure you'll find it. But that's my point. Like, this idea, this bigoted idea that trans people are sometimes claiming that they're trans so that they can go into a bathroom with women. Like, it makes...
And this is the trope that that the voters have gotten to decide on, which was a lie, that we are now going to cut our medical benefits for.
My point,
exactly. We prepay for so that we can have life-sustaining care in America.
Exactly.
I mean, for fuck's sake, they're saying essentially that, that they're transing the kids at school. They're having operations at school. Bitch, these teachers can't afford fucking crayons for their school. You really think they can afford gender change operations with what fucking operating room?
Is that by recess or lunchtime? Which is it? How fast are we moving here?
Like, I know some people, like, if the school board's going to pay for it, like, I know some people that'd be first in line to get that because, like, fucking gender confirmation surgery is expensive.
But again, this is also a very small percentage of the population. This is 20% of 1 million people in America.
And then they'll even point to the few cases you'll see of detransitioners where it's like, okay, so of the people that medically transition, you have like a very small, like, 1 to 5%, I think it is, will detransition. But of those, the ones that detransition because they actually regret it, and feel it was the wrong choice for them, like, are even smaller. Usually when someone detransitions, it's because they can't afford the medication, they're losing healthcare, they don't have a support system, they're being treated like crap, they're being discriminated against. So they're like, you know what, I will just go back in the closet for my safety. And, while it's a mental well being thing, if I'm not being ostracized, it's like I'm picking the lesser poison here. So they will hold up one or two fringe cases, that are not the norm, and try to use that to paint with such a broad brush across the
And take
entirety.
away your benefits.
And they
Right.
they use that to gin up fear so that they can essentially gut the government and give more tax money to fucking subsidize billionaires and corporations.
Voters should be very, very clear. They lied to you about something that is not happening to take away $2 trillion from healthcare, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And they will then take that money you prepaid to have those benefits if you end up in a situation like I did at
Yep.
26, to give a $2 trillion tax cut to the multinational corporations who are strangling your bank account at the grocery store. That is the truth.
Yep.
Yeah, because the price of eggs, like, it's because grocery stores, like, sorry, I'm gonna go off on
Go for it.
my
Go for it.
little
No,
rant
this
here,
is fine.
but it is absolutely price gouging. Like, you see these corporations showing record profits when there's supposedly, high inflation. First off, the United States recovered faster than any G7 nation with inflation. We actually had a soft landing, and we are in a better economic position than any of our other G7 counterparts.
100%.
Second off, the entirety of the grocery chain line, from farm to fucking grocery store, is owned by like 4 companies. And because it's only 4 companies, they don't have any real competition, and they can jack the prices up as much as they want. So you hear the news talking about, inflation. So they just crank the price up and, price gouge
Inflation.
essentially. And, so you're paying more. You don't have to. They're still showing record profits, but you're paying more. So if it were truly inflation and the prices were going up organically because of inflation, they would be showing, stable level profits, because they would just be increasing however much inflation is. Like, that is how it's supposed to work if you want things to maintain like some sort of stasis. But the fact that they're raising prices higher and higher, and they're showing record profits quarter after quarter when inflation is going down, and their profits are still going up and the prices are going up, that's the issue. Like, I live in Florida. We get hurricanes here. There are laws on the books in this state that you are not allowed to price gouge during an emergency. If you jack up the price of gas or water or groceries while there's a natural disaster, you will actually be punished for it here in this state. Granted, it's only really for if there's a hurricane, like if there's been a disaster emergency declared, but it's still better than nothing. Like, Kamala wanted to do that, but for everything nationwide, just stop the price gouging. If you were really worried about the fucking price of eggs, then you should have voted for them.
Well, and the things that voters should be really considering right now is the heist that the oligarchy class has pulled off will make it so that you will never have a 2-term Democratic president again. Because what they did do was they used greedflation, which is they artificially inflated the price of things at the grocery store, eggs, milk, flour, whatever. And then they all, as a group of billionaires, convinced everybody that this is because of what Biden was doing. If we allow this to happen again, we will never have a Democratic president, because what voters ended up doing was throwing out the Democratic Party as the ruling party because things are too expensive right now. And I get it. I am on disability. It is very expensive for me. I usually have to use my overdraft protections at the end of every single month to make sure that there's still food on my table. But I'm not going to give the power to the people who are strangling my wallet in order to fix the problem. And if we don't learn this lesson this election, we will never have a 2-term Democratic president again. And the problem with that is these people are electing people who are robbing the system of all of your benefits you prepaid for. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. It is very clear that they want control of all of that. And if they get in control of Social Security and you're able to invest that in the stock market, you better believe they will crash the stock market intentionally to make billions of dollars off of you and all of the money that you put in your entire life to have a stable retirement. And they will do it. They're very clear about that.
Yeah, that's what I wrote about in my blog today. My on Substack, he had a Substack. That was the subject today. Is why are Elon and Vivek trying to crash the U.S. economy?
And it's not just the US economy. Like,
Right.
we already have an issue with education being underfunded in this country, and they want to gut the Department of Education. So if you have a child that requires, like an IEP or a special needs kid, yeah, good luck with that. Your kid's fucked.
Yeah.
Like, if if
People in my
you
family.
yeah, no,
Sure.
like, again, my kid is autistic, like, granted, I'm homeschooling him, but that's just because I am able to, being disabled, like,
Sure.
stay-at-home mom kind of thing. It's like
Sure.
I need something to do, um but like my niece has accommodations because she's also neurodivergent, and like that's going to go out the window. Like, we're not even talking about like getting into just like the civil rights aspect of things. This is just like the stuff that is actually like going to affect
Yes.
so many people. And it just it infuriates me so much because it's not just the billionaires jacking up grocery prices. You have backroom deals being done with the fucking Saudi oil barons, where they are artificially inflating the price of gas when a Democrat's in office, again, to just turn the screws. And now Biden did like do things to try to counter that a little bit, but ultimately the people that we are importing the oil from, they're the ones that are ultimately dictating the gas prices.
Yeah. I mean,
And
OPEC can definitely affect that.
Something I really want to talk about
Yeah.
is how much you might not feel the whittling away of your benefits if you are an able-bodied voter.
Sure.
But what you will notice if you are not somebody who's not reliant on public social safety nets, you're going to learn what it was like to be in the HIV and AIDS crisis, because what we do know is the stories of the survivors. I am very lucky to be very close to so many people who lived through that time of history and were very involved in the queer community. And what they describe very painfully, and it's very hard for them to access these memories, is having a great group of friends, but looking around the bar and one by one, people just weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
People just started to disappear. That is what it will look and feel like when we crash Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. People who are important to you will just start to disappear. And the reason that is important to think about now is because of how isolating it's going to be for you when you lose a lot of friends and family and you're on your own and you're in your 30s. It's a lot harder to make friends in your 30s and 40s than it is in your early teens and 20s.
Yep.
And living an isolated life is no way to live. Being a part of a community makes you feel like a human because we are social creatures.
Right.
And voters really did not consider those things because of the nature of this wild election that was based in untruths and also the problems that the Democratic Party put forward onto the voters, which is a whole different story. But understand that if you're not somebody who's disabled, the people around you will start to disappear one by one. And then you will slowly but surely become more isolated in the world that you walk in.
And you
It's
will end up
absolutely
seeing
true.
more suffering around you as people lose benefits, medications, their housing. They might have Section 8 or some other program to help them. You're going to see an increase of unhoused people, people that are suffering without their medications. It is going. Either you're going to see the people fading, like you were saying, Stephen, or you're going to see a darker side of things where you've got people that need these programs and medications so that they are not a danger to themselves or others, losing their housing, losing their medications, and then all of a sudden you see spikes in violent crime from somebody that they are not a violent person by nature,
Sure.
but their brain chemistry is fucked up, and without the social safety net there to actually help hold them up, then they're just left to the wolves, and it's fucking heartbreaking.
And also keep it to your sympathy and empathy to people like me if you voted the way you did. And you're trying to comfort me by saying, we will step in if you lose your medication. We will foot the cost. You cannot foot the cost for every patient that is getting their benefits now. We prepaid into a system that alleviates the burden. I can't raise $245,000 a year on GoFundMe. That is not sustainable. The way it is sustainable is to have the programs like the Affordable Care Act, like Medicare, like Medicaid, like Social Security, disability insurance. So as much as that makes you feel good to tell me that you're going to like advocate for me, I don't need you to advocate for me in the future. I needed you to vote the right way. There was a right and a wrong way to vote this election. The wrong way won. Yep. And now there's going to be a lot of problems because of that. And so the only thing that I can tell you now is that when the problems start and I am alerting you, please move into action. If you think that I don't deserve to lose my medication, my protections, my disability insurance, show up at protests, call your congressman, make sure that you're in touch with your senator, do what has to be done. This could be a very potentially violent and horrifying situation for millions of people in America when we lose our benefits if the Republicans are successful at what they're trying to pull off.
And we missed this off-ramp, but damage could potentially be mitigated if you are actually called to action and become an advocate for the people in your life that you weren't thinking about when you cast your vote. Because let's be real, you weren't thinking about your elderly or disabled or chronically ill friends and family members when you cast a vote for Trump. You weren't, because you weren't thinking about, your women and AFAB people in your life, your nieces and nephews and granddaughters. Like, you weren't thinking about any of those people. Like, you just weren't. But like, ultimately things are going to get bad. And that's when you need to join the people who are going to be most impacted by this, the ones that were screaming with their hair on fire before this election, before you voted wrong. Like, you're going to have to stand with us in solidarity, make phone calls, get people involved, and be willing to go and put yourself on the line. I don't need platitudes. I don't need I wasn't thinking about that. I need you to fucking stand up with us, because people like us, we don't have a choice but to advocate for ourselves. If you are chronically ill, you learn from a very early on that you need to be your own fucking advocate, or they will just brush you off. They will not listen. They will not take you fucking seriously. So you have to learn to advocate for yourself. And by doing, you realize that, I'm not the only one that needs advocating for. So you advocate for others because you have that shared commonality of knowing what it is like to struggle and to suffer and to bash your head against a brick fucking wall that is doctors that don't listen, doctors that don't actually care. They just care about cashing an insurance check. And I've had plenty of those. So no, you need to be right there on the front lines with the rest of us, making phone calls, reaching out to people, and actually walking the walk. Otherwise, just fuck off platitudes. Like, I don't need them.
Politics is really like a game of shoots and ladders. And for the last 8 years, I have been climbing a ladder to get to a place where we could get Medicare price negotiations over the finish line. And we, for all intents and purposes, we did, but we could go further. But when it came time to get very close to the end, I caught that ladder all the way to the bottom of the deck, or the game board, because I am now back where I was in 2017. When Donald Trump just took office. And listen, there are going to be people who we lose along the way. That is a given at this point. We are going to lose people.
We can try harm reduction, but we're not going to stop the devastation that's coming.
But where you have to intervene as an able-bodied person or a person who voted for Trump but didn't want these consequences is you will have to, if we are so lucky to continue to have elections, is punish the elected officials who made it possible to lose people. You have to cast your vote in the way that protects people like me, people who are in your family, people like my mother who lives with ovarian cancer and is on a test trial for a breakthrough drug. Like, you have to punish people who harm your community, because the life that will continue to happen if we elect people like this is even more gruesome, even more taxing, even worse than what we are preparing to brace for impact for right now.
Punish them for trying to institute a full-on kleptocracy, because
Yeah.
we already have a bit of a kleptocracy. I mean, the first Trump tax cuts were essentially a massive giveaway to the wealthy on the backs of the working class, the poor,
Absolutely. Yep.
you know, the marginalized. But they want to go further than they did even in his first term. And Steven's absolutely fucking right. You need to punish them at the ballot box. And that includes down ballot races too.
Yes.
You have to actually go and don't just vote based on vibes, because this election was so much a vibes based thing where it's like, oh, he seems likable or personable, I'm not going to look into his policies. No, you need to actually research these candidates. What are their voting records? What are their policy proposals? You know, you have to pay the fuck attention and actually treat it like you're going into a final exam
Right.
before going and casting a ballot. And sorry, go ahead.
Consider how many babies have to die in a NICU on Medicaid before the price of milk actually doesn't really matter to you.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And Steve, can you comment on what Michelle says here? That's a big problem when the Trump side is so good at misinformation. I mean, what's the way that you would suggest people deal with misinformation?
Listen, be very clear. We are in an uphill battle fight right now, because a lie they can tell in 20 seconds in a clip on TikTok is now more powerful than the dedicated work of journalists. And so you have to have a moral core. Mine is always vote on the side of people who will be the victims of bad public policy. Don't feel bad for people in power. They do not deserve your sympathy or your empathy. You need to hold them accountable, because at the end of the night, they will go to bed in a nice bed with beautiful sheets and probably with somebody that they love to sleep a peaceful night's sleep. While there will be people who are victims of bad public policy who go hungry at night, who do not have a place to keep warm, who do not have a place that has a roof over their head, who are lying awake all night because they didn't have enough pills to take care of their cancer this evening. And that is the moral core you have to hold through everything, through the increase of price of milk or eggs or any of this bullshit that they greedflation their way to a win. And you have to dismiss the sensationalized tropes that they put on in these 20-second clips on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. You have to build your own resistance inside of you and make sure that you're always asking, am I doing what's on the best interest for people who could potentially be the victims of bad public policy?
I'll take it a step further. Keep track, and have something. We all have phones on us, you know, when there are these tropes that are going around, have the facts and actually argue with people in your area. Show them if they spout some nonsense. Be like, no, here are the facts. You're not going to reach everybody, but you know, for every person you can reach, that is one more vote on the right side of history and on the side of reducing overall harm and helping more people. So you're going to have to not only advocate for those people, but you're going to have to try to make converts as well, for lack of a better word.
I have what I call the 3 H's. I measure all of my political advocacy on where I can organize around on these 3 H's: healthcare, hunger, and housing. If a functioning democratic society will make sure that those essential needs are met first. And if an elected official goes after any of those 3 H's that destabilize any portion of their society who is a constituent, you should really consider, are they really being an elected official for all people, or just because of the public policies that they want to pass for their own interest. Everything else could be a little bit more frivolous.
Yeah, if we want to like argue about like, you know, the top marginal tax rate, you know, or like whether we want to extend like homestead exemptions on property taxes for this or that, yeah, we can like have those types of arguments. But when it is coming to civil liberties and basic fundamental human rights, which I'm sorry, we are guaranteed life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness in our Constitution. If you do not have health care, if you do not have food in your stomach, and you do not have somewhere to sleep at night, you cannot have life, liberty, and the pursuit of fucking happiness. Because nobody is happy if they are sick and starving under a fucking bridge.
That's true.
Sorry, like this is like one of those things I am very, very fucking passionate about.
Talk about it. That's literally why I wanted to talk about it.
And when you see, and when you, because things like, let's be very clear, things are really bad right now, guys. And it's now so bad that now patients who should be taking care of their health now have to make themselves very public and come out about their struggles, reliving their trauma on a daily basis to provoke a response of humanity from people, which we did not get at the ballot box this last month.
We did not.
And this is going to be very hard. Pay attention to how many patients you are going to learn the names of this time around. I can remember the four biggest ones I could think of the top of my head. The last time around was Audie Barkin, was Laura Packard, my friend Johnny, myself, and Elena Hung from Little Lobbyists. These activists have to come forward and talk about the very hard struggles that like of their physical challenges in life, rather than having just the comfort that we can have a functioning government, that our needs around healthcare, housing, and hunger are all going to be met, so that we can actually take the time to heal our bodies. I have spent the last almost 9 years of my life doing this kind of work. I would rather be able to take a little time to be able to nurse the mental and physical ailments of my body rather than being doing this. I don't want to be famous. I don't care about any of this, the recognition I have gotten for my contributions to healthcare activism. I'd rather be able to be at home and living a happy and healthy life. I don't care about any of this stuff. But the voters have
blanket, hot cocoa, and Charmed.
Right. And, you know, I think that's to be self-serving. That's why we're here, right? Like, literally, that's what this show was created. The reason this channel is called Progressive Liberal and not, hey, a guy talks about politics, was because I saw progressive liberal being used as an insult. Not on the right. It started at the right. But then the left was using it as an insult. And I was like, guys, progressive is what we want. We got to where we are because of progressive liberalism. It's literally called the Enlightenment. It literally inspired Thomas Jefferson to write the Declaration of Independence. Like, that was progressive, like the seed of progress. Anyway, so my point is, that's why this channel exists, is to expose this stuff, to talk about this stuff, to have a forum to talk about this. And I'm not saying that we're the best or we're the only ones. Obviously, there's many channels out there with far more subscribers and views and blah, 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 blah. But make sure that you are finding sources of news or whatever you want to call it, journalism, that is not lying to you for profit, that is not pushing stuff in your face to get you angry so that you will take actions that are against the better angels of your nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you want to get angry...
Hold on real quick, because I'm going to finish.
Absolutely.
I don't fundamentally believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't fundamentally believe that most Trump voters, if you sat down and like Steve talked to them one-on-one, would be like, yeah, Steve, I want you to lose your medicine. I don't think most Trump voters would say that.
And they don't. They don't. I spent
Right.
8 years talking to millions of people, hundreds of thousands of one-on-one conversations of Republicans who were like, I don't want that.
Of course, because it's not a normal thing for anyone to want, but they still went and voted for Trump because they were fed a bunch of propaganda and falsehoods that got their brains to think, oh, the real danger is that someone's going to send their child to school one day and they're going to come back with unexpected gender reassignment surgery. It's just, it blows
that
my
one is
mind.
just so fucking
Done
wild.
at school today.
Right,
Like, that
of
is
course.
so
Like,
fucking
what?
wild to me.
And be clear, voters, they only do this so that you hand your wallets and your future over to them.
Right.
And then they take advantage of you.
Yes. Which
Yeah,
is what
don't
they're
get
going
angry. Don't get angry about the imaginary bogeymen that they do of, oh, you know, the caravans that only show up on election years coming for the
Right.
border, or they're transing the kids in school, you know. No, don't get mad at that. Get mad at the fact that, you know, the Republican Party platform wanted to ban states from being able to do free school lunches for kids.
to do.
Like,
Yes.
not even just saying we're
Children,
not going to support
Right.
feeding children, we are going to ban even blue states from being able to feed kids in school.
Right.
Be angry at them forcing children to have children when they are, you know, essayed by adults. Like, get mad at those things.
I saw a story today that child labor complaints are absolutely out of control in the state of Arkansas. Because guess what they passed earlier this year? Laws that made child labor easier.
Legal again. Yeah.
And so people are taking advantage. You know, there's ways
children
to stop
that
this
came
stuff.
here without their parents
Right.
from across the border that they then stick in meat packaging factory, where tons of them are being injured by the equipment.
Of course. Because no, that's not where children belong. But here, my point is that most people would, like, if you sat down 100 people and said, do you think that children should work in meatpacking plants? Even if they're children that are here, you know, without documentation, they'd be like, no, of course not. Like 98% of those people would feel that way. You'd have the couple of assholes be like, yeah, I don't care. Like, they exist. But most people don't feel that way. So the way to change things is not on macro levels. It's not even on micro levels. It's grassroots. It's talking directly to people. People that you know, people in your community. That is how you change the literal world. Go run for city council. Go be a city councilman. Go be a animal control. I don't know. Go do anything.
County
in your
commission.
Community. That is how you can literally change the entire world if all of us did that.
And be willing to have difficult conversations. Like, we can no longer go forward with, oh, we don't talk about religion and politics. Instead, we need to start having conversations about how to have civil conversations about difficult subjects. Because for the longest time, people refusing to talk about those two subjects has led to people not actually having these conversations and not really thinking through the impact that, I mean, you might not fuck with politics, but politics fucks with you. Like,
Sure.
Politics is involved in every single aspect of our lives. Yep. Full stop. There is not a single part of your life that politics doesn't touch. And just because you don't talk about it, you know, it's burying your head in the sand. It's not going to change the fact that it's going to have an impact. And so many people are, you know, just checked out of politics. They don't have these conversations. They don't watch political content. Right. They are, you know, the low information voters. It's not saying they're stupid. It's just they're not actually researching those things. They're not plugged in.
Yeah.
Those are the people you need to reach, because those are the ones that if you sit them down and go policy by policy, they're like, oh, yeah, Medicare for all. I like the idea of that. I want people to have health care. Oh, yeah, you know, like free school lunches for kids. I like that idea. Right. Raising the minimum wage.
Kids to eat? Like,
I like that idea. Like, if you go policy for policy, they are at the very least center left, but I guarantee they're a lot further to the left and more progressive, you know, and more of a Bernie crap. The majority of people, when you talk to them in this country, are closer to a Bernie Sanders than they are to like a Mitt Romney or a Rand Paul or you.
Yeah, and Maya brings up a point. Before we do our closing thoughts, Maya brings a point that does need to be mentioned along with this. They don't want kids to be fed if it means black kids will be fed. Many on the left don't want to understand that. There is a underpinning of general racism. I wouldn't even call it necessarily white supremacism, but just racism. Anti. It's really anti-color than it is anti. Like they don't like everyone who is brown. Is my point. Then like it's not just I don't like Haitians or I don't like, Arabs. Whatever it is, it's it's more about the pigment of the skin itself, which doesn't make any sense to me. But it's just, you know, that's where we are. Steve, I'd love to hear your closing thoughts. Long as you like, of course. But,
Sure. I want to talk about hope because a lot of people are coming to me right now looking for hope.
Sure.
Look elsewhere at the moment. I am struggling. I know what it takes to defeat something like this, and I don't see the activation or the mobilization. Can I get to hope? Yes. But we need to see people moving from the stagnant apathy of lies and disinformation to a moral core that propels them into taking action. Right. And sorry, even though I do this with such earnestness, it's still very difficult for me to talk about these things. And so I'll leave you with my quote that I used all throughout the last 4 Trump years, which is, hope is often spiritual, and and sometimes we can lose our connection to our spirituality. And that's when hope, showing up, becomes the physical act of hope. If you want to see people like me become hopeful, I need you to start showing up. Propel yourself into action. Because only when we see people who are common people, who cannot stomach or take what is happening anymore, move into action, will we build the capacity to be able to stop the impending doom a lot of people are going to feel these next 4 years. And that is where I will leave you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Just thank you for everything that you've done. It doesn't, I know that I personally not am affected, but people that I love are and will be, and just know that I genuinely appreciate all the work that you've been doing, and continue to do. I really do. Kitty, your closing thoughts?
Honestly, just a bit of reiterating what I said. If the people that are going to be most impacted had the power to do this on our own, we wouldn't be in this situation. Like, we absolutely need our friends and family members and coworkers, people that know us and love us, to show up. I mean, just building on Steve's point, like, if you fucked up, okay, like, apologize and then try to make it right. Just, ignoring it or just saying, well, I didn't know that this was going to impact you like this is not good enough. You can't just say I'm sorry and continue an action that causes harm, because that's not actually being sorry. You actually have to put in the work to make it right. And some things can't be made right. There are people that are going to die because of the people that voted for Trump. Full stop. Like, there's no getting around that. But what we can do is mitigate some of the damage and prevent it from getting even worse by continuing down this negative spiral, and actually pushing to try to stem the flow, essentially to staunch the flow. And we'll triage it as best as we can and limp along until the midterms and the next election, God's willing, and we have one, the next presidential election. And then we need you to show up then. But if you didn't show up before election day, then you're going to have to put in twice, 3, 4 times as much effort to try to make amends for that, because it is so much harder to fix something once damage has been done than it is to prevent damage in the first place. Yep. To take a tailoring metaphor, a stitch in time saves 9. If you have a little tear and you put a little stitch in it, it stops the tear from growing bigger. Yep. Like that's what that means. And we could have done the little stitch and stopped things from getting bad, but we can't. Like, the tearing is going to happen. It's just how bad is it going to get? and how much is it going to take to try to repair it, but it's never going to be the same again. Like, there are going to be people that are not going to see 2028 because of what has happened. So
Yes.
like, do better. Like, that's all. Like, do better by your fellow man, by the people that you care about that are chronically ill or disabled or even elderly. Like, geriatric people are going to be impacted by this too, even if they don't have something like a cancer or a debilitating nerve condition. Like, so many people are going to be impacted. You need to do better. And that's my piece. Like, this is something like I could go on
No,
and
I
on and
agree.
on about.
I mean, I couldn't say it any. The problem is that we've just had two excellent closing statements, and now I have to follow both of them. We're going to be here, is all I can say. We're going to be here. We're going to keep doing shows like this, talking to people like Steve. Steve, I'd love to have you back at some point too.
Yes.
What I'm thinking is maybe some sort of panel discussion with you and some other people that I know do activism, and we'll figure that out. I would just echo everything that both of you have said, so I'm not going to say it again. I'm just going to move on.
Follow me on Blue Sky.
Yes.
Yeah, follow us on Blue Sky, prolibshow.substack.com. Again, tomorrow I will be with Machine Gun Kelly, 11:30 Eastern. Next Thursday, no, not next Thursday. Next Thursday's Thanksgiving. The following Thursday, Elle will be here. Elle is from Australia. She does a lot of feminist activism in Australia. And we're going to talk about how the spread of authoritarianism in the United States is affecting Australia. Because, April will tell you. April, who, of course, is always here, is from Australia. And, we have a lot to talk about. So not next Thursday, because that's Thanksgiving, the Thursday after. And next Tuesday, of course, we'll be back. We'll be back here. Follow us on Blue Sky. It's all down below. kittytheatheist.bsky.social, prolibshow.bsky.social. Of course, stephenmartin.bsky.social. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, voters.